Hello, and welcome back to the Masked News Network. This is Host. I haven't actually thought of a name yet. I might change that later. Since my last video, I've gotten a bit of engagement and some questioning as to why I wear this mask. So, I want to be completely transparent about it. But I won't. Moving on to something much more important, I also got told to increase my drip. So, yeah, it's a start, right? I gotta be careful. I'm one step away from a fedora aesthetic, you guys. As always, remember, we are here to think with objectivity and use intellectual honesty to guide our minds and decisions over the information we consume. If you don't agree, you speak up. And if you do agree, you also speak up. Always in the pursuit of what is true and what is not, regardless of party preference. Now, let's take a look at some American shenanigans. Press Speaker Caroline Leavitt had a very interesting way of putting the reasoning for tariffs on Canada, China, and Mexico the other day.
The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans. These are promises made and promises kept by the president.
Tens of millions? I'm going to be generous and say that that means about 20 million Americans. And now I'm going to be factual and point out that it's about 250,000 Americans since 2018, which is horrific. That's a lot of people who didn't need to die. And yes, I know she probably misspoke or probably meant something else, or she was giving the Roman explanation of fent deaths, but she said what she said. So that's all I can really confirm. And while even the real figures are super concerning, it's, quite small compared to, say, cigarettes, which have killed nearly 500,000 Americans since 1999. Excuse me, 500,000 Americans in the year 2024. There, that's better. So while it is a crisis, I would like to hear how they define crisis, because I would like other aspects of our living here in the States to also be defined that way then. Does that mean that we don't work on the fentanyl problem? Of course not. Let's end it as soon as possible. I do question how this is supposed to fix that though. I'm not trying to be obtuse about this. If there's a purpose behind these disciplinary tariffs, I assume it's to put pressure on these countries to fix the illegal operations of fentanyl within their borders and thus reduce the amount distributed to the United States. And let's try to look at this from a positive angle. What if this does indeed put some motivating pressure on countries to take a closer look at what's going on in their borders and put a stop to the illegal fent trade? Then I tell you, this demand for drugs in our country will be met from other sources. The problem is domestic. There is a demand in our country for these substances. Maybe not specifically fent so much as other products that can be laced with it for cost purposes. Let's play the next video.
They've allowed, both of them, Canada very much so, they've allowed millions and millions of people to come into our country that shouldn't be here. They could have stopped them, and they didn't. And they've killed 300,000 people last year, my opinion, have been destroyed by drugs, by fentanyl. The fentanyl coming through Canada is massive. The fentanyl coming through Mexico is massive. And people are getting killed, and families are being destroyed. I mean, the son gets killed, and the family is a basket case for the rest of their lives. I mean, I've seen mothers that thought they'd heal. They never heal. They say it gets worse with time. It gets worse with time. They lose their boy, they lose their baby, they lose their young daughter to fentanyl poisoning.
And the phrasing of these videos makes it sound like Canadians are waiting outside of someone's home in Wisconsin, like lacing their maple syrup with fentanyl and secretly putting it in your children's pancakes to get them to OD. If drugs are arriving here and finding consumers, that's because there's a market for it, which means the best way for us to combat something like this is through education and opportunity of the people. Of the many factors that contribute to drug use and addiction, one of the biggest predictors is socioeconomic status, for many different reasons. So it logically follows that if we increase the education and quality of life for our people, we can start to combat this problem at its roots. Does taking supply off the streets make a difference? Of course. You can't exactly use what isn't available. But people are going to use substances, and the problem is bigger than that of just fent. So, while it is possible that these measures can have some form of effect on the fentanyl problem eventually, what's even more possible is economic hardship on the American people, which will exacerbate one of the contributing factors to drug use. Just think about it. In 2024, an estimated half of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. We are the richest country in all of human history, and that wealth is not shared by our people. We have extremely rich men and corporations, and the toll that these disciplinary economic measures will take will not be felt by them in any meaningful way. Roll the next video.
The outgoing country is not paying the tariff. The buyers in the United States pay that, and then that's passed on to consumers in most instances.
Sometimes.
How would you expect to have prices come down if you have such a broad plan for tariffs? And what do you say to the voters who want to see you reduce everyday costs?
Well, let me just tell you that I got elected for a lot of reasons. Number one was the border. Number two was inflation, because I had almost no inflation. And yet I charged hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs to countries. And think of it, I had almost no inflation and took in $600 billion of money from other countries. And tariffs don't cause inflation, they cause success. They cause big success. So we're going to have great success. There could be some temporary short-term disruption, and people will understand that. I had that when I negotiated some of the good deals for the farmers. And unfortunately, those...
The people will understand. Some people will understand, he's right. Some people may not be able to actually ever truly criticize the man because of the stakes associated with what those criticisms mean. There's a lot of people in our country, on both sides of the spectrum, who have made politics a very important part of their identity. To question it now is to scrutinize your own identity. It's not easy. And digging into them is a good way for them to dig their heels in as a response. So I've mentioned before in previous videos, conversations of this nature must be met with reasoning and understanding if we want any hope of changing the hearts and minds of the people around us. Starting with our own, of course. Some people will take the negative effects of these actions and they will understand. But some people won't understand. I watched this happen to the left in the United States. They pushed and they pushed and they talked about noble ideals and isolated the people who didn't agree with them, and now they've lost. And there is no reason it cannot happen to the right. All of this to say, I can't see how disciplinary tariffs are going to help the fentanyl crisis. I can't see how it's going to help our economy, and I can't see how it's going to help Trump. I have to assume that he's not doing this because he wants people to suffer. He probably believes that this is the right way to go. And I really hope that he's right, because if he's not, we are the ones affected by it, not him. Thank you for watching, everyone. The news is gifting me with content these days, so I'll be pumping it out as often as I can. But if you're ever interested in hearing me discuss something, just go ahead and drop it in the comments. Until next time, my friends. See ya.